Ladies and gentlemen, today we are going to explore a concept that, though often overlooked, has the power to truly transform our lives. A life free from ego. We live in a world where ego is often celebrated. It drives us to prove ourselves, to stand out, to be the best, to never show vulnerability. But let's pause for a moment and ask ourselves, what if the very thing we cling to, the ego, could be holding us back from becoming our best selves? A man with no ego doesn't feel the need to constantly prove his worth. He understands that his value is inherent, not dependent on external validation. This is the power of humility. Humility is not about thinking less of yourself. It's about thinking of yourself less. It's about recognizing that we are all connected, and that no one person is more important than another. When we let go of ego, we open ourselves to self-awareness. We can see ourselves clearly, our strengths, our weaknesses, and areas for growth. Without the filter of ego, we can receive feedback without feeling defensive or threatened. A man with no ego doesn't fear criticism because he knows it's an opportunity to learn. He welcomes growth and development. This is where emotional intelligence comes in. A person free from the constraints of ego can understand and manage their emotions in a way that benefits them and those around them. They listen more deeply, empathize more fully, and communicate with greater care. In doing so, they cultivate relationships built on trust and respect. Letting go of ego means letting go of the need to always be right or to always be in control. There's freedom in that release. A man with no ego can be present in the moment without being preoccupied with his own image or status. He doesn't need to be the center of attention because he understands that life doesn't revolve around him. He can focus on others and be genuinely connected without the barrier of self-interest. Finally, let's talk about self-worth. There's a big difference between having a healthy sense of self-worth and being ruled by ego. A man with no ego knows who he is, and his worth is not contingent upon the opinions of others. He does not need to assert his superiority to feel valued. Instead, he recognizes that true value comes from within, from how we treat others and how we show up in the world with integrity. Ladies and gentlemen, a man with no ego is not weak or passive. He is powerful in his humility, confident in his self-awareness, and grounded in his emotional intelligence. He has the courage to let go of the very thing that holds most of us back. When you free yourself from ego, you make room for the truest version of who you are. You create space for growth, connection, and peace. So today, I invite you to reflect. What would it be like if you, too, could let go of the ego that sometimes stands in your way? What would it feel like to walk through the world with humility, self-awareness, and confidence, without the need to prove anything to anyone? The power of letting go of ego is the power to truly live. Free, authentic, and deeply connected to the world around you. Ego is a powerful force within each of us. It shapes our thoughts, our actions, and even our interactions with others. At its core, ego is a sense of self-importance, the part of our identity that seeks validation and recognition from the world around us. It tells us who we are, how we should behave, and what we need to achieve in order to feel worthy. The ego drives our desire to be better, to be seen, to stand out. But, while it can help us navigate the world, it can also limit us, blocking our potential and interfering with our true self. Understanding the ego is the first step in recognizing its influence on our lives. We often think of the ego as something that is inherently negative, something that makes us selfish or arrogant. But in reality, it's a fundamental part of who we are. It's our mind's way of giving us a sense of identity, a way of protecting ourselves from the world. It's the part of us that makes us feel separate from others, the voice that says, "I am different, I am unique, I must prove myself." In some ways, this drive for recognition and success can be helpful. It pushes us to achieve, to strive for more. But when we let ego take over, it can easily distort our perception of ourselves and others. The ego thrives on comparison. It often measures its worth against others. Am I more successful? Am I more important? Am I more capable? These comparisons are what keep the ego alive and in control. When we begin to identify ourselves based on how we measure up to others, we lose sight of who we truly are. We stop focusing on what really matters, our own growth, our own peace, and our own happiness, and instead we fixate on external markers of success and approval. This cycle is exhausting, and it often leads to feelings of inadequacy, because no matter how much we achieve, it's never enough to satisfy the ego. It constantly craves more, pushing us to chase after things that don't truly bring fulfillment. The ego can also manifest in our relationships with others. When we allow our ego to dictate how we interact with people, we are often driven by a need to be right or to have control. We become defensive when someone disagrees with us, and we might even try to manipulate situations to ensure that we come out on top. But the truth is, when we operate from a place of ego, we aren't truly listening to others. We aren't open to learning from them, and we don't allow ourselves to grow. We become so consumed with protecting our image, with maintaining our sense of superiority, that we lose the ability to form genuine, authentic connections. The ego also feeds on fear, fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of being judged. These fears keep us trapped in a cycle of self-doubt and insecurity, where we feel the need to constantly prove ourselves. The more we try to protect our ego, the more vulnerable we become to the very things we fear. We avoid risks because we don't want to look foolish. We avoid stepping out of our comfort zone because we don't want to fail. But this fear-driven behavior keeps us small. It prevents us from reaching our true potential because we are too afraid to take chances and make mistakes. Another important aspect of the ego is its tendency to avoid responsibility. When we operate from the ego, it becomes easy to point fingers, to blame others, and to make excuses for our own shortcomings. The ego refuses to accept personal responsibility because doing so would require humility and vulnerability, things that the ego doesn't want to acknowledge. But true growth can only happen when we take ownership of our actions, when we start blaming the world around us and start looking inward. To truly understand the ego, we must also recognize that it is not the real us. It is a mask, a constructed identity that we've built up over time based on societal expectations, past experiences, and external influences. It's not who we truly are at our core. The ego may tell us that we are our accomplishments, our titles, our possessions, or even our failures. But none of these things define our true self. At our deepest level, we are not what we have, but who we are, beneath the layers of pride, fear, and self-protection. Letting go of the ego is not an easy process, and it doesn't happen overnight. It requires deep self-awareness and a willingness to confront the parts of ourselves that we may have been avoiding. It requires us to shift our focus from external validation to internal peace. When we let go of ego, we allow ourselves to embrace our true nature, to live authentically without the need to prove anything to anyone. It's only when we free ourselves from the constraints of the ego that we can experience true freedom and growth. And in doing so, we unlock our fullest potential, allowing us to live with purpose, compassion, and clarity. Humility is often misunderstood. In a world that glorifies ambition, success, and self-promotion, humility can seem like a weakness, something that holds us back from achieving our goals and standing out. But the truth is, humility is not about diminishing oneself or acting small. It's about understanding our place in the world, recognizing our value without the need to boast or prove anything. Humility is a powerful force because it allows us to live with authenticity, to connect with others on a deeper level, and to embrace growth in a way that arrogance or pride cannot. A humble person doesn't need to be the center of attention. They don't feel the need to constantly showcase their accomplishments or to seek validation from others. Instead, they understand that their worth is not based on external approval or accolades, but on the strength of their character and the value they bring to the world. They can walk through life without the burden of constantly proving themselves, which frees them to focus on what truly matters: their personal growth, their relationships, and the positive impact they can have on those around them. Humility is not the same as low self-esteem. It doesn't mean putting yourself down or downplaying your achievements. Instead, it's about recognizing that you are just one part of a much larger whole. Humility allows you to acknowledge your own strengths and talents while also understanding that others have their own unique gifts. There's a sense of peace that comes with this realization, because it removes the need for constant competition or comparison. A humble person doesn't feel threatened by the success of others. Instead, they celebrate it. They know that someone else's achievements don't diminish their own worth, and they are comfortable supporting others in their journey without feeling envious or resentful. When you embrace humility, you become more open to learning. Humility allows you to recognize that you don't have all the answers, and that you can always grow. It frees you from the need to have the right answer or to always be the one in control. A humble person is willing to listen to others, to seek advice, and to learn from their experiences. They understand that there's always room for improvement, and that wisdom comes not only from within, but also from the people and the world around them. This openness creates a space for continuous personal development, because a humble person is never too proud to admit when they're wrong or when they have more to learn. Humility also fosters empathy and compassion. When you let go of the ego, you begin to see others not as competitors or obstacles, but as fellow travelers on this journey called life. You start to understand that everyone has their own struggles, their own battles, and their own triumphs. Humility allows you to connect with others from a place of understanding, not judgment. You are more likely to offer help, support, and encouragement when you recognize that others are just as valuable as you are. Humility shifts your perspective from me first to we are all in this together. This shift in mindset also helps in building meaningful relationships. When we approach others without the barrier of ego, we can engage with them more authentically. We stop trying to impress or manipulate, and instead focus on forming genuine, heartfelt connections. A humble person doesn't need to dominate the conversation or be the loudest voice in the room. They know that sometimes the most powerful thing they can do is simply listen. By doing so, they build trust, respect, and a sense of mutual understanding. These are the foundations of strong, lasting relationships, both personally and professionally. Humility fosters resilience. When you are humble, you are not tied to the idea of being perfect. You accept that you will make mistakes, face challenges, and experience setbacks along the way. Rather than seeing these moments as failures, a humble person views them as opportunities for growth and self-improvement. Humility allows you to bounce back from disappointments with grace, to learn from them, and to keep moving forward without letting them define you. It gives you the strength to keep going, even when things don't go as planned, because you know that your worth isn't tied to your success or your mistakes. Living with humility doesn't mean living in self-doubt or self-neglect. It's about finding balance. It's about acknowledging that you have unique gifts, talents, and abilities, but not letting those things define you. It's about giving yourself credit for your achievements, while also remaining grounded and aware of the bigger picture. Humility allows you to stay connected to your values, your purpose, and the people who matter most, without getting caught up in the fleeting pursuit of external recognition. Humility is the key to living a life that is rich in meaning and fulfillment. It's the foundation of strong relationships, personal growth, and emotional resilience. When we let go of the ego and embrace humility, we open ourselves to the beauty of life's journey. We allow ourselves to grow, learn, and connect with others in ways that we never could if we were trapped by the need to prove ourselves. Humility doesn't hold us back, it sets us free. It allows us to live fully and authentically, without the weight of arrogance or pride, and with the peace that comes from knowing that our true value doesn't need to be displayed for all to see. It simply is. The strength of self-awareness cannot be overstated. It is the cornerstone of personal growth and emotional intelligence, the key to understanding our true selves. Self-awareness is about having an honest and clear understanding of who we are, what motivates us, how we react to situations, and the impact we have on others. It's about stepping back from the noise of daily life and examining ourselves with a discerning, non-judgmental eye. This awareness is essential because it allows us to make informed decisions, respond thoughtfully to challenges, and build more meaningful relationships. At the core of self-awareness is the ability to observe ourselves without bias. Most of us are so caught up in the daily rush, in the expectations of others, and the demands of life, that we rarely take the time to reflect on our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. We act on autopilot, driven by habits and conditioned responses, without truly understanding why we do what we do. This lack of self-awareness can lead to frustration, confusion, and even feelings of being stuck. We might find ourselves repeatedly making the same mistakes, reacting impulsively or feeling disconnected from our own values and desires. But when we take the time to become aware of ourselves, our strengths, weaknesses, fears, and desires, we begin to gain clarity. We understand why we do what we do, and in that understanding we find the power to make better choices and navigate life more effectively. Self-awareness allows us to recognize our triggers, the situations, people, or thoughts that cause us to react in certain ways. These triggers are often tied to our past experiences, our beliefs, or our insecurities. For example, we might find ourselves becoming defensive in a conversation when someone challenges our ideas, or we might feel angry when someone criticizes us. These emotional responses may seem automatic, but when we become aware of them, we can begin to unpack them. We can ask ourselves, why does this bother me so much? What is it about this situation that triggers such a strong reaction? In doing so, we create space between stimulus and reaction, allowing us to choose how to respond, rather than being driven by knee-jerk impulses. This ability to pause and reflect gives us the freedom to act with intention, and not from a place of unconscious habit. Being self-aware also means understanding our values and what truly matters to us. In a world that constantly pulls us in different directions, it's easy to get lost in the noise and forget what we stand for. Self-awareness helps us to stay grounded in our principles. When we are clear about our values, we make decisions that align with them. We don't get swayed by external pressures or the opinions of others. Instead, we act from a place of conviction, knowing that we are living in accordance with who we truly are. This clarity strengthens our sense of purpose and direction, providing a solid foundation upon which to build our lives. Self-awareness enhances our emotional intelligence, particularly in how we relate to others. When we are aware of our own emotions, we become better at recognizing and understanding the emotions of those around us. We become more empathetic and compassionate, able to connect with others on a deeper level. This emotional sensitivity enables us to respond to others' needs with understanding, rather than reacting based on our own emotional state. Whether in personal relationships or professional settings, emotional intelligence fosters cooperation, trust, and respect. It allows us to navigate conflict with grace, communicate more effectively, and build stronger, more positive connections. Self-awareness also empowers us to embrace our imperfections. Too often we try to hide or deny our flaws because we fear judgment or rejection. But when we are truly self-aware, we can accept our weaknesses without shame. We realize that perfection is not the goal. Growth is. We acknowledge the areas where we need improvement and take steps toward becoming better, without being weighed down by guilt or self-criticism. Self-awareness frees us from the need for external validation because we are secure in our understanding of who we are. It enables us to be authentic, to show up as ourselves, without the pressure of pretending to be someone we're not. Another important aspect of self-awareness is its ability to guide us toward our personal goals and aspirations. When we are in tune with ourselves, we can more clearly identify what we want out of life. This clarity helps us to set meaningful goals and create a roadmap for achieving them. Self-awareness ensures that our goals align with our true desires and values, not with the expectations placed on us by society, family, or peers. It keeps us focused and motivated, even in the face of challenges, because we know that what we're working toward is genuinely in line with who we are. In addition, self-awareness helps us to understand our limitations and boundaries. We are often too eager to please others, to take on more than we can handle, or to ignore our own needs in favor of helping those around us. But true self-awareness requires that we acknowledge our limits and take care of ourselves. It teaches us the importance of self-care, of knowing when to say no, and of setting boundaries that protect our well-being. By respecting our own needs, we not only preserve our mental and physical health, but also become more effective and present for others. Ultimately, self-awareness is the gateway to living a life of authenticity, fulfillment, and growth. It empowers us to make conscious choices, to understand and manage our emotions, and to navigate life's challenges with wisdom and resilience. By fostering self-awareness, we gain the clarity and insight needed to live in alignment with our true selves, to build deeper connections with others, and to grow into the best versions of ourselves. It is a lifelong practice, but one that leads to greater peace, purpose, and personal empowerment. The value of emotional intelligence, EQ, in fostering healthy relationships, both personally and professionally, cannot be overstated. Emotional intelligence is the ability to recognize, understand, and manage our own emotions, as well as the ability to recognize and influence the emotions of others. It is essential to building meaningful connections, resolving conflicts, and creating an environment of trust and empathy. While IQ may help us excel in technical fields or academics, it is emotional intelligence that truly drives our success in relationships and human interactions. At its core, emotional intelligence involves self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills. Each of these components plays a vital role in how we communicate with others, how we respond to challenges, and how we contribute to the emotional climate of a situation or environment. The ability to understand and control our emotions is not just about managing stress or anger. It's about being in tune with our feelings, recognizing when they arise and understanding how they affect our actions and decisions. This level of self-awareness allows us to make more thoughtful, deliberate choices, rather than reacting impulsively or out of frustration. When we are emotionally intelligent, we can regulate our emotional responses in a way that supports rather than hinders our relationships. For example, when faced with criticism or conflict, an emotionally intelligent person doesn't allow their ego to take over or respond defensively. Instead, they remain calm, composed, and open to understanding the other person's perspective. This self-regulation helps prevent the escalation of arguments and creates a space for constructive dialogue. Being able to manage one's emotions also allows us to stay focused and avoid distractions caused by negative feelings, enabling us to engage more effectively with others and achieve our goals. In addition to self-awareness and self-regulation, emotional intelligence also involves motivation. This refers not only to our internal drive to achieve our goals, but also to our ability to stay positive, persistent, and resilient, even in the face of setbacks or adversity. Motivated individuals are often more optimistic and proactive, and their enthusiasm is contagious. This positive energy can inspire those around them and create a more supportive, collaborative environment. People with high emotional intelligence tend to have a growth mindset. They see challenges as opportunities to learn and grow, rather than obstacles to their success. Perhaps one of the most important aspects of emotional intelligence is empathy, the ability to understand and share the feelings of others. Empathy goes beyond sympathy. It involves actively listening to others, tuning into their emotions, and responding with compassion. Empathetic individuals can put themselves in someone else's shoes, allowing them to relate to others in a way that is supportive and non-judgmental. This quality is invaluable in building trust and rapport with others, as it creates an environment where people feel heard, understood, and valued.